Hello, it is Tuesday, it is Reviews Day Tuesday, it is the Quiet as Mouse Book Club, and this week I am reviewing War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy. I finally finished it! How many times did I have to push back this review? I don't even want to think about it. This book was published in 1869, the action begins in 1805, and it leads up to the French invasion of Russia by Napoleon in 1812. It is divided into 4 books with 15 parts between them, and there is also an epilogue with 2 parts. My copy is 1,455 pages long, but of course this will depend on the translation you're reading. The story is mainly concerned with 5 aristocratic families: the Rostovs, the Bezukovs, the Bolkonskis, the Kuragins, and the Drubetskoys. But it also contains essays about war and history, and there are more of those as the book progresses, which I found very interesting. The only other book that I've read that has had that element to it is Les Miserables. As I said, there are several different translations. I read the Anne Dunnigan 1968 translation, which is apparently one of the better ones. I hear there is another good one from 2007-ish, I think. But I'm not an expert on translations of War and Peace. All I know is that I read the Anne Dunnigan one, and I got on pretty well with it. It was very easy to read, and the characters often speak in Russian and French, which could have been very confusing in an English translation, but I think it was handled well in this one. War and Peace has lots of characters, but most of them are introduced very early on, so it never got too confusing. Also, it helps that most of the main characters are just from the 5 main families, and the other characters tend to just be in one storyline. I did find it useful that I'd listened to the BBC Radio 4 adaptation at the start of the year, however. It just helped me to keep track of who everyone was. This whole book was much easier to read than I thought it was going to be. It is pretty massive, but the chapters are short, only a couple of pages long each, and because it's so epic in scope, if there's a storyline or character that you're not particularly interested in, you can just wait a few pages, a few chapters, and then the story will be concentrating on something else, and it will drag you back in. If I was to read it again, I would probably try to do a little bit of reading into Russian history first, because it helps to give it context, and the essay parts can be kind of dry otherwise. I enjoyed the writing. It's quite cinematic in style, I think. It flits between different characters and viewpoints and stories seamlessly, and it feels, to me at least, like you're looking in on the characters as the story is happening, as opposed to joining them in the story. Did that make sense? The thing that most impressed me with this book is how real the characters are. They change their minds. They go into a room intending to say or do something, and they end up doing something completely different. They misremember conversations they've had and things they've said. Whenever I read in a book about a character misunderstanding another character, it is usually there to further the plot, whereas in War and Peace, it is there because that is what people do. I can't remember the last book I read where the characters seemed so human. I found that quite inspiring, and it's definitely going to stick with me as I go forward in writing and filmmaking. So yes, I really enjoyed this book. I will give it 4.7 out of 5. I definitely recommend reading it, no matter how long it takes. So we got a bit behind with the Quiet as Mouse book club because I couldn't speak last week, so my next book review will actually be next Tuesday, the 17th of March, and I will be reviewing Fight Club. Look how short it is, I am so excited. And then on the 31st of March, I'm reviewing The 3 Musketeers. I've been enjoying the second series of the BBC adaptation, so I figured it's time to read this. I would be very interested to hear your thoughts about War and Peace. I hope you have a good day, and see you tomorrow.